She apologized for existing. The alpha vampire said, "Never say that again." The forest was alive with whispers of wind and rustling leaves. Mist curled around the trunks of ancient trees, thick and silver, hiding shadows that seemed almost alive. Elora walked carefully along the narrow path, her small lantern swinging in front of her. Every step on the damp soil felt heavy, as though the earth itself was trying to hold her back. She had always felt out of place in her own life, a shadow among the bright lights of others' happiness. Even the simplest moments filled her with fear. Fear of speaking too loudly, fear of drawing attention, fear of existing at all. And now, in the heart of this forest, she wondered if the trees could hear her thoughts and judge her too. I'm sorry for being here, she whispered to herself, her voice trembling. She lowered her gaze to the misty ground, afraid of what might appear. The forest was silent for a long moment. Then, from somewhere deeper within the shadows, a pair of eyes appeared, sharp, golden, and impossible to ignore. Elora froze, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The creature stepped forward, tall and impossibly graceful, his presence commanding the space around him. His black coat seemed to absorb the light, and his hair fell around his face like midnight silk. "I hear everything," a deep, smooth voice said. "Why do you apologize for existing?" Elora's lips parted, but no sound came. Oh. She wanted to run, but her feet felt rooted to the ground. Her instinct screamed that this being could destroy her with ease, yet there was something else in his presence, a strange, magnetic pull that made her chest ache. I don't know, she finally whispered. I think I am always a mistake. The man's gaze softened, just slightly, but it was enough to make her breath catch. He stepped closer, and the air around them seemed to thicken, charged with something she could not name. "Never say that again," he said, his voice firm, yet layered with something warmer beneath the edge. Elora blinked. The weight of his words pressed down on her, yet they did not hurt. Instead, they made her feel seen in a way she had never been seen before. She looked at him, searching his face for anger, for cruelty, for the danger she knew was supposed to be there. But there was only attention. Who are you?" she asked, her voice small. I
am Kale, he said simply. And you should not wander here alone, little shadow.
This forest is not kind to those who fear their own steps.
Elora swallowed hard. I didn't mean to. She paused.
Her words caught in her throat. I didn't mean to bother you. Kale's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in quiet observation. Bede. You are not a bother, he said, stepping closer. His presence was overwhelming, yet not frightening. It was the kind of weight that demanded acknowledgement.
You simply...
Forget your own worth. No one had ever said words like that to her before. People usually told her to be quiet, to step aside, to disappear. But Kale's words were different. They carried a weight, a promise that she mattered, even if she did not yet understand why. I don't know how to stop apologizing, she admitted, breath. Her fingers twisted around the handle of her lantern. Bass. I feel like I am always in the way. Kale studied her for a long moment. Then, with emotion that seemed to make the shadows themselves lean closer, he extended his hand. Come with me, he said. There are truths you need to learn about this forest and about yourself. Alara hesitated. Fear screamed at her to run, to flee into the mist and disappear into the safety of nothing. But something in his eyes, something quiet, steady, and unyielding, made her take a trembling step forward, then another. As they moved deeper into the forest, the mist seemed to part before them, as if the shadows themselves recognized the command of the alpha vampire. Trees twisted into towering arches overhead, and strange flowers glowed faintly along the path. The air carried the scent of earth, rain, and something else, something ancient and unplaceable, like history itself. "Are you helping me?" Elara asked quietly, unable to stop the question from spilling out. Kale's gaze lingered on her, sharp and penetrating. "Because you are not meant to wander in fear," he said, "and because I see what you cannot see yet, you are stronger than you believe." "You simply doubt yourself." Elara looked down, unsure how to respond. "Doctor!" Doubt had always been her companion, a shadow she carried even in the brightest moments, and yet, standing next to him, she felt that shadow shift slightly, retreat just enough to give her a sliver of courage. They reached a small clearing where the moonlight poured through the treetops, silver and cold. In the center of the clearing stood a stone fountain, cracked and dry, with carvings of creatures she did not recognize. Kyle stopped beside it and turned to her. "Sit," he said. "Rest. You have walked far, and the forest has tested you." Elara obeyed, sinking onto the cold stone edge of the fountain. Her legs felt weak, her chest tight, and yet there was a strange comfort in the steady presence of the vampire before her. "You are afraid," Kael said softly, "of me." Breaths. "Of this place. Of yourself." "Psst. Yes," Elara admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "I am afraid of everything." Kale's expression softened, though a shadow of sadness flickered behind his golden eyes. "Fear is not weakness," he said. "It is the first step to understanding yourself. But you must learn to stop apologizing for being alive. You are not a mistake. You exist because you were meant to. Never forget that." Elara felt a lump rise in her throat. No one had ever spoken to her like this before. Not her family, not her friends, not even the teachers who had scolded her for being timid. Kale's words were like sunlight through the mist, warm and cutting, impossible to ignore. I don't know if I can believe that," she whispered. "You will?" Kale said quietly, though there was an edge to his voice that spoke of centuries of experience. "And when you do, the world will see you differently. Even the shadows will yield to you." Breath. The wind stirred in the trees, and for a moment it felt as if the forest itself was listening, leaning closer to hear her response. Elara looked at him, at the impossible, immortal being who spoke of worth and courage in the same breath. And for the first time in her life, she wondered if she might be capable of more than just hiding, apologizing, surviving. "What happens now?" she asked, uncertainty threading through her voice. Kael tilted his head, his gaze never leaving hers. "Now you survive the night," he said, "and you begin to understand that fear does not define you. I will show you how to face the darkness, but you must be willing to see it clearly, not as a threat, but as a part of who you are." Elara nodded slowly, her mind swirling with questions, doubts, and a flicker of hope she had never dared to feel. The forest no longer felt entirely hostile. The shadows seemed less threatening, and the silence was no longer oppressive. But just as she began to feel a tentative sense of trust, a sudden movement in the mist made her gasp. A pair of glowing eyes, smaller and more distant than Kale's, watched them from the undergrowth. They blinked once, then disappeared, leaving only the rustle of leaves. Kale's expression hardened instantly. "You are not alone," he said, his voice low, warning and protective. "The forest tests all who enter it, and there are those who would use your fear against you. You must be ready!" I don't know if I can be ready," she admitted, her voice trembling. Breath. "You will," Kale said firmly. "But first, you must promise me something."
"What?" she asked, her small voice nearly lost in the rustle of the mist.
"Never, never say that you are a mistake again," he said, his golden eyes locking onto hers. "Because you are not. And I will not allow you to diminish yourself any longer. Understand?" Elara felt a shiver run through her, not from fear, but from the weight and certainty of his words. She nodded, barely trusting herself to speak. I understand," she whispered. Kale's gaze softened ever so slightly, and the tension in the clearing seemed to ease, though only for a moment. He gestured for her to rise. "Then we move forward," he said. "But know this, the forest has many eyes, and not all of them are friendly."
You must walk carefully, Elara. And you must trust yourself.
And me. Her lantern shook slightly in her hand, but the warmth of Kale's presence steadied her. For the first time, she did not feel entirely invisible, and the thought both frightened and thrilled her. As they vanished deeper into the forest, the mist curling around them like a living thing, Elara realized something she had never allowed herself to admit. She was not entirely afraid. Not yet. And somewhere in the shadows of the ancient trees, eyes watched them, curious, calculating, and dangerous. Elara did not yet know the trials ahead, the dangers that waited in the darkness, or the bond she was beginning to form with the immortal being beside her. But as Kale's hand brushed briefly against hers, deliberate yet not fully touching, she felt a spark of something undeniable, something that would change her life forever.
She had apologized for existing once.
And Kale's voice, deep and commanding, had refused to allow it. Never say that again. And she would remember it, for it was the first step toward a life she had never dared to imagine. The castle rose like a shadowed mountain, dark stone walls climbing toward a sky shrouded in clouds. Towers pierced the mist, their peaks disappearing into the night. Lanterns flickered in narrow windows, but the light was weak against the vast darkness surrounding the fortress.
Alara's heart pounded as she followed Kale through the massive iron gates.
Every step echoed in the empty courtyard, her small lantern trembling in her hand. The air was colder here, thick with the scent of stone, old wood, and something faintly metallic. "Stay close," Kale said, his voice low and commanding. "The halls are not kind to those who wander without guidance." Elara nodded, swallowing her fear. She had always believed the world was too large, too full of dangers she could not understand. And now, this castle, so massive, so silent, made her feel even smaller than before. But Kyle's presence beside her gave her courage she had never felt. They entered the main hall, and the enormity of it stole her breath. High vaulted ceilings stretched above them, supported by columns carved with creatures she did not recognize. Shadows clung to every corner, as if the stone itself whispered secrets only Kale could hear. Pshh! The place. It's incredible, she murmured, unable to hide her awe. Beth. Kale's lips curved, faintly,
but his golden eyes remained serious.
Incredible, yes, but it is also dangerous.
Bay, every stone, every shadow carries the weight of centuries. You must learn to move through it carefully. Base, fear can be both a shield and a trap. Elara nodded again, gripping the lantern tighter. I want to learn. Good, Kale said, because you will need every ounce of courage to survive here and beyond. They walked in silence through twisting corridors, tapestries depicting battles, ancient rulers and strange rituals lined the walls. Elara noticed how Kale's presence seemed to command the space, the shadows bending around him as he moved. She felt both comforted and intimidated, a mixture she could not name. But, why me? She asked quietly, finally breaking the silence. Why are you helping me? Because you are not like the others, he said. Most humans would have fled this forest or fallen to fear. You stayed, even when every instinct told you to run. That is strength. Quiet, unpolished, but strength nonetheless.
Elara looked down.
Strength had never been a word she associated with herself. She had always felt small, invisible, a shadow in the lives of others. Yet Kale's words stirred something inside her, a tiny spark of possibility. They reached a door made of dark wood, carved with intricate symbols that pulsed faintly in the moonlight. Kyle opened it and gestured for her to enter. Beyond it lay a library unlike anything she had ever seen. Endless shelves stretched from floor to ceiling, filled with leather-bound tomes, scrolls, and artifacts that seemed older than time itself.
This is where you will learn, Kale said, his voice softer now, almost gentle.
But to understand it. Knowledge is the first weapon a human can wield in a world ruled by shadows.
Elara stepped inside, her eyes wide.
The scent of old paper and ink filled her nose, and the soft glow of enchanted lanterns illuminated the rows of books. It's beautiful, she whispered. Kyle's gaze lingered on her as though he were studying not the library, but her reaction to it. Beauty is often found where danger lies hidden, he said. Remember that. The world is rarely as it seems. Days passed in a strange rhythm. Kale trained her in subtle ways, teaching her how to move quietly, how to sense danger before it arrived, and how to trust her instincts. He never touched her, never spoke of romance or affection directly, yet every lesson carried an unspoken intimacy that left her heart fluttering and her thoughts restless. Elara began to notice small things about him, the way his eyes softened when she succeeded in a task, the tension in his shoulders when danger approached, the quiet strength that radiated from him, even in moments of stillness. And she realized with a mixture of fear and awe that she was drawn to him in ways she had never imagined.
"You are improving," Kale said one evening as she practiced moving through the dim corridors.
But you still doubt yourself. That doubt can be lethal. I am afraid, she admitted. Every step feels like a test I cannot pass. Unwavering. Fear is not a weakness, he said. It is the first step toward power.
You must learn to use it, not run from it. And you must remember, your existence is not a mistake.
Do you understand? Elara's throat tightened. She nodded, feeling the weight of his words settle in her chest. I
understand, she whispered.
That night, as she tried to sleep in the small chamber KL had prepared for her, she could not. The castle was alive with whispers, shadows moving in ways that seemed deliberate, the echo of footsteps that might have been imagined or might have been real. And always there was Carl, silent and watchful, a presence that both comforted and unnerved her. She thought of the forest, of his words, "Never say that again," and of the strange spark of courage he had ignited within her. Could she really stop apologizing for her existence? Could she face the dangers of this world and still remain herself? The questions twisted through her mind, keeping sleep at bay. The next day brought a test she had not anticipated. Cale led her to the northern tower where rival vampires awaited. They were not cruel, but their eyes carried centuries of power and suspicion. They spoke in tones that dripped with authority, testing her presence, judging her with a sharpness that made her knees weak. Cale's hand brushed hers briefly, a subtle touch meant to steady her, and she felt the shiver of awareness. The other vampires noticed nothing, but she felt exposed, every flaw magnified by their gaze. "You will survive this," Cale said quietly, his voice a tether she clung to. "Do not let their scrutiny define you. Walk with your head high even if your heart is afraid." Elara nodded, drawing a shaky breath. She stepped forward, each step a challenge, each heartbeat a declaration. The vampires circled her, their golden eyes assessing, questioning, yet nothing in their judgment could shake her resolve. By the time she returned to Cale, she felt exhausted but alive in a way she had never felt before.
I did it, she said softly, a mixture of pride and disbelief in her voice. Cale's expression softened, a rare, fleeting warmth touching his features.
"Yes," he said, "and tomorrow you will do more. Each step you take, each challenge you face, will teach you your own strength. Remember, Elara, power does not come from being unafraid. It comes from moving forward despite fear." As they walked back to the library, the wind stirred through the castle towers. Elara shivered, and Cale draped a dark cloak around her shoulders, his fingers brushing hers again. She felt the weight of centuries in that simple touch, the unspoken promise of protection and understanding. But the castle was not without its dangers. That night, as Elara tried to rest, she heard whispers again, softer this time, almost melodic, yet full of intent. Someone or something was watching her, waiting for a moment of weakness. Cale did not intervene immediately, but his presence was there, unseen yet tangible, a silent shield against the unknown. And she realized that her trust in him was growing, even as the forest of her own fears and doubts remained tangled and wild inside her. The following morning, Cale summoned her to the courtyard. Mist curled around them, the light of the moon still faintly visible in the gray dawn. "Today," he said, "you will learn that strength is not just physical. It is the courage to face the unknown, and the clarity to see your own worth.
You will be tested, not by me, but by forces you cannot yet comprehend." Elara's heart beat faster, but she stood tall, gripping her lantern as if it were a sword.
"I am ready," she said, though a part of her trembled at the words. Cale's eyes softened again, a rare, almost human vulnerability touching his features. "Good," he said, "because the shadows are patient. They will watch, and they will wait, and some of them will seek to challenge you in ways you cannot yet imagine." As he turned to lead her toward the northern gates of the courtyard, a shadow detached itself from the mist. A figure, cloaked in black, moved silently, observing them with eyes that glinted in the faint light. Elara did not notice it yet, but Cale's gaze flicked toward the presence, his expression tightening with silent warning. "You are not alone, Elara," he said, voice low and steady. "And not all who watch you wish you well. Remember this, always. Trust yourself and trust me. But together we will face what comes. But do not mistake caution for weakness. Your enemies will exploit the slightest hesitation. Psst. Elara swallowed hard. The wind tugged at her hair, carrying the scent of danger and possibility. She realized with a mixture of fear and exhilaration that she was no longer the timid girl who had apologized for existing in the forest. Power. She was stepping into a world of shadows, power, and secrets. And she would either be consumed by it or rise stronger than she had ever imagined. And somewhere, in the deep shadows beyond the courtyard, a pair of eyes watched her carefully, waiting for the moment to strike, or perhaps to reveal the first piece of the puzzle she had yet to understand. Elara did not yet know which it would be, but she knew with certainty that her life had changed forever. The moon hung low and pale over the ruined cathedral, its light spilling across shattered stones and broken stained-glass windows. Inside, the air was heavy with dust, the scent of earth and old magic mingling with the faint metallic tang of iron. Broken statues lay scattered, their faces worn and unreadable. The place seemed frozen in time, yet alive with a presence that watched silently, waiting. Elara stepped carefully through the debris, her lantern casting trembling light on jagged edges. Every step felt like a test, every shadow a potential threat. She had never felt so small yet so vital, aware of every heartbeat, every breath, as if the cathedral itself measured her existence. "Stay close," Kale said from behind her, his deep voice resonating in the hollow space. "This place holds more than history. Basis. It holds power, both dangerous and necessary. You must feel it, not fear it." Des. Elara nodded, swallowing hard. I feel it," she whispered. "It's strange, almost alive." Kale's gaze softened slightly, though his golden eyes never left hers. "It is alive," he said. "And it watches everything. The cathedral remembers the lives that passed through it, the sorrows and betrayals, the hopes and regrets. And now it will remember you." Elara's fingers tightened around her lantern. "Why me? Why would it remember me?" "Because you carry something ancient," Kale said, his tone quiet but firm. Breath. "Something that has been part of this world long before humans feared the shadows. You are tied to a curse that spans centuries, one you do not yet understand. But an that curse is stirring." A chill ran down her spine. "A curse?" she whispered. What do you mean?" Kale studied her silently for a moment. Then he stepped closer, his presence steadying her like an anchor in a storm. "Long ago," he said, "there was a bond between humans and vampires. It was fragile, easily broken by fear, by betrayal, by neglect. That bond left traces, echoes of power in those who were born under certain omens. You, Elara, are one of those echoes. Your existence threatens the balance of both worlds. And yet, it also holds the key to restoring it." Elara's head spun. I don't understand. How can I be dangerous?" "Not dangerous," Kale corrected gently. "Important. Significant. Impossible. But the power you carry is tied to your emotions, your fears and your doubts. If you fail to control it, it will consume you. Or others. That is why you must learn, and quickly."
Bay. Her heart pounded. She had spent her whole life afraid of existing, afraid of her own shadow, afraid of being a mistake.
Now she was told that her very life carried power. A power that could either save or destroy. She shivered, half in fear, half in awe. Can it be stopped? She asked quietly. Bear. Kale's expression hardened slightly. No, he said. Bay.
It cannot be stopped. It can only be understood, mastered, and controlled.
That is why you are here. You are not alone in this, Elara, but you must face it.
Alone. No one survives this path. They moved deeper into the cathedral, past fallen arches and shattered pews. The faint glow of her lantern illuminated strange runes carved into the stone floor.
Kale knelt and traced them lightly with his fingers.
These runes are part of the ritual that can awaken the power within you, he said. It is dangerous. It tests not only your strength, but your heart, your resolve, and your willingness to believe in yourself. Elara watched him, trembling. And if I fail? Kael's golden eyes met hers, steady and unflinching. Then the curse will take what it can. Fear will rule, and darkness will follow. But I do not believe you will fail.
Not if you trust yourself, and not if you allow me to guide you. For the first time, Elara felt the weight of his words settle into her chest.
Trust was not something she had given freely before. She had hidden, retreated, apologized for every step she took in the world. But now, with Kale standing beside her, she felt a flicker of courage, a spark of determination.
I will try, she said, her voice small but firm.
Kale nodded, his expression softening slightly.
Good.
That is all I ask. But understand, this will not be easy.
Desperation.
You will face visions of yourself, of what you fear most. You will confront the parts of your soul that you have tried to bury.
Only then can you claim the strength that is yours by right.
The ritual began with Kale guiding her through the strange runes. He chanted words older than any language she had ever heard, words that rolled through the cathedral like distant thunder. The floor beneath them pulsed faintly, as if the stones themselves breathed. Elara felt a tremor in her chest, a strange heat that made her knees weak. Her own emotions rose, unbidden. Fear, doubt, longing, and something else she could not name. It swirled inside her like a storm, tugging at her very soul. You are stronger than you think, Kale murmured, his hand hovering near hers but not touching. Do not fight it. Allow it to show you what you are capable of. Her vision blurred. She saw herself in countless reflections. A girl hiding in shadows. A girl trembling before the world. A girl carrying power she had never known. And beneath it all, she saw another version of herself. Tall, confident, unafraid. But tears streamed down her face as she whispered, I don't know if I can hear. I don't know if I can. Kale stepped closer, his voice a grounding force. You already are her. You have only forgotten. Trust yourself, Elara. Trust the strength you have always carried. The storm within her chest surged, then slowly began to settle, like wind moving through a forest. She felt her heartbeat steady, her breathing calm. And then she felt it, a power within her, quiet and immense, like a river flowing beneath the surface of her soul.
But the awakening did not go unnoticed.
From the shadows of the cathedral, something stirred. A dark, formless presence, drawn to her energy, hissed and twisted in frustration. Elara did not see it, but Kale did. His expression darkened, golden eyes blazing. "You feel it, don't you?" he asked, his voice low and urgent. Elara nodded, shivering.
Yes, something is here. I can feel it.
"That is the curse's shadow," Kale said. "It feeds on fear, on doubt, on hesitation. It tests you, and it will not stop until it has your answer." The shadow moved closer, swirling around them like smoke, cold and alive. Elara's first instinct was to step back, to hide, to apologize for existing once more. But Kale's hand was there, steadying her, and his voice rang clear in her mind. Never say that again. She drew a deep breath, forcing herself to meet the shadow with eyes open, heart steady. I am... The shadow recoiled slightly, hissing, as if surprised by the sudden assertion. Kyle moved to her side, his presence a shield. "Good," he said. "You're beginning to understand. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to act despite it." Elara felt the power within her respond, a warmth spreading through her chest, through her limbs. She raised her hands instinctively, and a faint glow emanated from her palms, light pulsing with her heartbeat. The shadow shrieked and twisted back, forced to retreat by the force of her emerging strength. Day's golden eyes never left her.
"This is only the beginning," he said.
The curse will test you again and again, but tonight you have taken your first step toward mastery. Remember it, hold it close, Bay, and never forget who you are. Elara trembled, exhausted, yet exhilarated. I think I understand, she whispered. A little. Kale's gaze softened, but there was still a storm behind it. You will understand more tomorrow, and the next day, and every day after. But know this. The world outside these walls is not patient. Forces will come for you. Breaths. Enemies both seen and unseen. And some of them will test more than your strength. They will test your heart. Her chest tightened. My heart? She asked, voice barely audible. Kale did not answer immediately, for he only studied her, as if measuring her resolve, her courage, and her potential. Then, finally, he said, "Yes." Your heart, for it is as important as any weapon or spell. It is what will guide you through the darkness, if you let it. And if you falter, it may also be what condemns you. Elara swallowed hard, trying to hold back both fear and hope. The cathedral seemed quieter now, yet the weight of its ancient presence lingered, pressing against her chest. She understood that her journey had only begun. She had faced the first test, awakened a power she had never known, and survived.
But the shadow in the corners of her vision reminded her this was far from over, and as Kale guided her toward the exit, his hand brushing hers briefly once again, Elara realized something profound.
She had faced the darkness, and yet she had not apologized for existing. Not once. Bah! The shadow hissed one final time before retreating into the cathedral's deepest corners, leaving only silence and the echo of her heartbeat. Elara took a deep breath, feeling both fear and exhilaration. She had touched her own power, but she had also seen the cost of ignoring it. The world was full of darkness.
Yes, but she was beginning to see that perhaps she could face it, with Kale beside her.
Beck, and somewhere in the shadows beyond the cathedral walls, unseen eyes watched them, patient, waiting, knowing that the next test would be far greater than the first. The storm arrived suddenly, a curtain of rain that swept across the kingdom, hammering against the castle walls and turning the surrounding forests into rivers of mud and shadow. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the jagged towers and the dense mist that wrapped around them. Alara stood at the edge of the northern cliff, the wind whipping her hair around her face. Her heart thudded, not with fear this time, but with determination. Every step she had taken, every lesson Kale had taught her, every whisper of courage she had allowed herself, had led her here.
You are ready, Kael said from behind her, his cloak flapping in the wind like a shadow made solid. Tonight the curse will test you as never before.
But remember, power alone cannot save you. Your heart, your choices, your trust, these are what will determine the outcome. Alara nodded, gripping the amulet Kale had given her, the one that pulsed faintly with her own heartbeat. The glow of the stone matched the rhythm of her courage.
I will not fail, she whispered, though doubt lingered like a faint shadow at the edges of her mind. Kael's golden eyes softened.
You may falter, but that is not the same as failing. Courage is not perfection. It is the willingness to stand even when the world expects you to fall. Together they descended into the forest below, where the first hints of the curse's final form had already begun to appear. Shadows twisted unnaturally among the trees, shapes that should not exist. But when she focused, there was nothing there, only the echo of fear trying to make her doubt herself. You feel it, Kale said, his voice low, his eyes scanning the darkness. The curse grows stronger as your heart hesitates. You must face it, fully and without apology.
Elara drew a deep breath, the rain soaking her hair and clothes. I am not afraid, she said, her voice steadier than she had expected. I will face it. I exist.
I matter. The shadows twisted violently at her words, forming into a figure dark and immense, taller than any human, with eyes that burned like embers. It spoke without sound, a presence that filled the clearing, pressing against her mind with every thought she had ever feared or hidden. Kale moved to her side, his expression grim.
It feeds on your doubt.
Do not let it find a crack in your courage. Alara stepped forward, raising her amulet. The stone pulsed brightly, as if responding to her heartbeat. Bess. I will not hide, she declared. I am not a mistake. I exist, and I am stronger than you think. The shadow shrieked, recoiling from her voice and light. It lashed out, twisting the air around them like living smoke. Kyle moved, his movements precise and commanding, holding it at bay while remaining beside her. The storm seemed to answer their struggle, lightning striking around the forest in jagged bursts, thunder rolling like the drum of war. You are doing it, Kale said, voice urgent yet steady. Focus. Do not falter. Your heart, your courage is the key. Alara closed her eyes briefly, recalling every lesson, every moment of doubt she had faced and overcome. The words Kale had spoken, "Never say that again," echoed in her mind. They were more than words now. They were a shield, a mantra, a truth she could hold on to. Opening her eyes, she faced the shadow fully. You will not control me, she shouted, and the amulet glowed brighter, light spilling outward, cutting through the darkness like a blade of pure energy. The shadow shrieked again, twisting and writhing as if it were burning from the inside, then shattered into motes of black smoke that dissolved into the wind. Kale stepped closer, his eyes glowing softly in the stormlight. You have done it, he said, awe threading through his voice. You faced the curse, and it could not break you. Elara sank to her knees, exhausted yet exhilarated. But I did it, she whispered. I really did it. Kale knelt beside her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. But
No, he said softly. You didn't just do it.
You chose yourself. You accepted your strength, your existence, your power.
That is what the curse feared. Not you, but your courage. Tears ran down her face, mingling with the rain. But this time they were not tears of fear, they were tears of triumph, of recognition, of rebirth. She had spent her life apologizing for existing, and now she no longer needed to. The storm began to ease, the rain softening to a gentle drizzle. The forest seemed calmer, the mist less threatening. Shadows that had lingered now receded into the corners, silent witnesses to her transformation. Kale's gaze met hers, golden eyes filled with something she could not name: pride, awe, affection, and something deeper, unspoken.
You were never a mistake, he said quietly.
And now nothing can erase you. Elara smiled faintly, exhausted but radiant. I believe it, she whispered.
I believe that I exist for a reason. Kale extended his hand and she took it. The warmth of his touch grounded her, solid and real, yet charged with something impossible. Immortal strength tempered by understanding. Together they rose from the forest floor, rain dripping from their hair and clothes, standing side by side as the first light of dawn touched the horizon. But even as the sun began to rise, casting gold and pink across the kingdom, a faint shadow lingered on the edge of the trees. It was smaller than before, patient and watchful, an unseen presence that had not yet acted. It studied them, calculating, waiting for a moment when doubt or hesitation might return. Elara noticed the shadow, but she did not step back. She squeezed Kale's hand lightly, and the warmth of his presence reminded her of the courage she now carried. I am not afraid, she said, and for the first time the words were fully true. Kale's golden eyes softened, and a rare, almost human smile touched his features. And you never will be, he said. Not while you remember this moment.
Not while you remember yourself. For a long while they stood in silence, watching the sunrise paint the ruins of the forest in shades of gold and rose.
The storm had passed, but its memory lingered, a reminder of both danger and triumph. Elara's heart, once fragile and apologetic, now beat with strength and certainty. She had faced the darkness and survived. She had claimed her existence. Kale's gaze swept over the horizon, thoughtful and distant.
The world is still full of shadows, he said, voice low.
There will be challenges. There will be those who seek to test you, to challenge the courage you have earned.
But you have learned the first and most important truth, that your life matters. Your choices matter.
Your heart matters. Elara leaned slightly against him, feeling the solid warmth of his presence.
And you helped me see that, she said softly. Kale's expression darkened for a moment, the weight of centuries pressing on him. I have been many things, he said quietly.
A ruler, a warrior, a guardian, and I have often forgotten what it means to be human. You reminded me.
You reminded me that even immortals can change ass and that even centuries of solitude can be healed by trust and courage.
Bow. Her fingers tightened around his. We changed each other, she whispered. Kale nodded, golden eyes meeting hers, deep and unflinching.
Yes, he said. And that
is perhaps the rarest and most dangerous power of all, to change one who was thought unchangeable. The castle behind them loomed in the morning light, shadowed and ancient, yet now it seemed less menacing. The trials had passed, the curse had been faced, and though the future held unknown dangers, Alara felt ready to meet them. But she was no longer apologizing for existing. She was here. She was strong. She was alive. And Kale, for the first time in centuries, allowed himself to believe that redemption was possible, not only for her, but for himself. The burden of immortality, of centuries of isolation, had been lightened by her courage, her presence, and the truth she now carried like a banner. That existence itself is never a mistake. As they turned back toward the castle, the shadow in the trees stirred once more, unseen but no longer threatening. It had been a witness to courage, and perhaps it had learned something as well. Alara glanced at Kale, her heart swelling with gratitude, and something she dared to call hope. I think we can face anything, she said. Kale's lips curved in a rare, genuine smile. Yes, he said. Together we can face anything. The wind carried the scent of rain and earth, and for the first time, Alara felt at peace. She had stepped into the darkness and emerged into her own light. The curse had been faced, the shadow had been challenged, and the bond between them had been forged in courage and trust. The sun rose fully over the horizon, casting gold across the kingdom, but Alara lifted her head, letting the warmth touch her face. She had survived the night, faced the darkness, and, most importantly, claimed her place in the world. She had apologized for existing once, and now she never would again.